So, as you may be aware, you see the large police presence here in the area of Goodman Street near Pennsylvania Avenue. At around 12:25 this morning, we received multiple phone calls from concerned citizens after hearing gunshots in the area. As officers arrived near the 200 block of Pennsylvania Avenue, officers observed approximately 100 people running to and from the 200 block of Pennsylvania Avenue, which was a very chaotic scene. We can see and observe multiple victims of gunshot wounds at that time. In fact, in total, we have 16 confirmed victims of shooting, and I'm sad to announce that 2 of those 16 received a fatal wound. Right now, I'm unable to identify those 2 because we are still in the process of confirming that identification and notifying those families. But I can say one of our victims, deceased victims, was a male, approximately age 18 to 22, and the other was a female, approximately the same age, between 18 and 22. The event that was taking place in the 200 block appears to be some type of backyard party that the police department, up until the point where the 911 calls came in for the shots fired, was not aware of. In fact, we checked our records and we don't show any 911 calls for a disturbance or a loud party or even illegal parking. Again, it was not until we arrived that we realized what was taking place at the location, and did a very good job trying to manage the scene, trying to identify witnesses and victims and get them the medical treatment that they needed. I would like to thank the New York State troopers who responded to assist us, the Monroe County Sheriff's Department, Irondequoit PD, and all our other town partners who came to lend a hand for, as you can imagine, a very chaotic scene. This is yet another tragedy where individuals are having these illegal and unsanctioned house parties taking place in these properties, which, number one, is not safe, because of COVID, because of the conditions, and then you add in alcohol and violence, and it just becomes a recipe for disaster. So I urge anyone who has any information to please contact the Rochester Police Department. This scene will probably be held for a considerable amount of time. We will notify you when it is open, and we are in the process also of trying to inform the neighbors and figure out a way that they can take care of the things they have to do tomorrow. But again, we will be here for the foreseeable future.
Chief Simmons, are there any suspects in custody at this point?
Right now, we do not have any suspects in custody. Do
you anticipate that there were multiple shooters involved in this incident?
It's too early right now to really tell.
Can you give us
Has a gun been recovered?
We're in the process still of investigating, and we are looking for evidence that would help us solve this case.
Can you give us a description of the male victim?
The male victim is a male black, approximately age 18 to 22 years old. And the
what
female,
does he look like? What color clothes does he have on?
I cannot provide that information right now, ma'am, because we haven't notified the family or really positively identified it.
We don't know. We need to know.
So in just a second, I will talk to you off camera.
Okay, thank you.
Did the shooting happen inside the house or outside? Was it a drive-by?
It appears that the shooting did happen outside. A lot of the evidence supports that the shooting happened in the backyard.
Now, can you tell us the youngest victim?
Again, the ages have not been all identified, or the victims, ages and names have not all been identified.
What hospitals were they transported to?
They are transported to 2 hospitals. Some are at Strong Hospital, and others are at Rochester General Hospital.
How serious are their injuries?
It's our understanding that none of the other victims have suffered life-threatening injuries.
Was it targeted? Did this appear to be random?
We're still very early on in our investigation, and we hope to find those answers out pretty soon.
Are there potentially more victims out there that you guys haven't found yet, or haven't been to a hospital yet?
So our officers did conduct backyard searches, neighborhood searches, to make sure that there wasn't any other victims that may have been missed or lost. It's our understanding that all the victims did arrive at the hospital, but of course, if there's someone who hasn't made it to the hospital yet, that remains unknown.
With that being said, there was, as the scene was taped up, there was more victims calling 911 saying they were shot in the leg, shot in the foot. So are you sure that, more people are, did you look inside homes? Like that, a lot of people are curious about, did you look inside homes during this shooting?
So we did conduct a thorough neighborhood search. to make sure that we identified all the victims.
Do you feel like the neighborhood, though this portion is secure, the rest of the neighborhood is safe, given that there hasn't been any arrest yet?
So we have no reason to believe that the neighborhood is unsafe. Again, we did do a thorough check, not just for victims, but also to make sure that there weren't any suspects that may have been hiding in a backyard or in any vehicle. So again, I believe that we're going to work hard, be here through most of the night, but the neighbors should know that the neighborhood is safe and that there will be a large police presence.
Chief, in your 18 years on force, can you recall any incident that harkens back to something like this, that even this scale, this magnitude?
No, I cannot. I mean, this is truly a tragedy of epic proportion, if you ask me. I mean, 16 victims is unheard of. And for our community, who's right now going through so much, to have to be dealt with this tragedy needlessly for people who decide to act in a violent manner is unfortunate and is shameful. And we're going to do everything that we can as a department to bring those people involved to justice.
So to be clear, it's 2 dead and 14 wounded at this point.
That is correct.
Can you tell us what other police agencies are involved? I mean, this is a massive scene here, and you guys do call this a mass shooting, so any outside or national police agencies will be involved in this investigation?
Right now, the Rochester Police Department is the primary investigating agency, and I mentioned already before that our town and our local and state partners did provide us assistance.
Can you talk about just how challenging is a scene to process it, where you have so much chaos kind of happening here, and probably victims kind of scattered all across different parts of the street, different parts of the yard here, and others probably showing up in private vehicles to hospital. Just how challenging it is to kind of have such a scattered out scene, trying to process it and work that.
It's an extremely difficult scene to process, where you have evidence scattered in multiple locations, victims who arrived at different hospitals, and just trying to identify and interview witnesses. But the police department have all hands on deck. Our major crimes unit have all investigators here, and they're working hard and diligently, along with our patrol units, to hopefully bring this case to a resolution.
Do you suspect what type of gun might be involved in this? I mean, to cause that amount of casualties?
I don't want to speculate maturely on an investigation.
So we don't know if there are illegal guns involved?
It's too early to say.
I'm still trying to understand. So could you go back and go over anywhere on suspect? I just missed that part. Sorry.
So we are currently interviewing witnesses and victims, so that way we can get a handle on a potential suspect or suspects.
Now, heard on the police scanner that there was one gun that was dropped during this shooting.
I can hold it.
Can you speak on that?
We are collecting evidence that we find in this scene and other scenes spread out, as this is a very large crime scene with multiple locations.
So can you confirm that there was a gun found, or?
I will not be confirmed that at this moment.
Just from your personal perspective, Chief, just taking over as Chief this week, how tumultuous of a week has this been for you?
You know what, truthfully, this is not a moment for self-reflection. This is a moment that I'm asking the community to pray for the victims and their families. A lot of people are hurting right now. A lot of people are seeking answers, and the police department are going to do what we can to help bring some comfort and solve this crime for the families.
Were all the victims outside of the town, or were some inside the home, some outside of the home?
We're still working on those answers.
How important is community tips in something in a case this large, this wide-scale shooting?
Community tips are extremely important. Even though someone may feel that they witnessed something that was so small and they feel insignificant, you don't know what connection that can help our investigators connect the dots and help find their suspects. So I, again, implore anyone who may have seen something, may have heard something, may have witnessed something, to please contact 911 and provide that information.
You had not received any calls about the party noise gathering at all?
No, our records show that we did not receive any 911 calls up until the point where the shots were fired.
Can you talk about response? How many officers arrived?
I don't have that number, but suffice it to say there were multiple officers that arrived.
Any officers injured?
Not that I'm aware of.
Has this particular location been a trouble spot before, this home, with parties or anything like that during this pandemic?
Not that I'm aware of, but again, we're still investigating that.
How many people have you guys had interviewed? There are hundreds. There are over 100 running. How many people have been interviewed so far?
I don't have that number readily available. Multiple witnesses that were interviewed.
Chief, you mentioned the healing in the community. I noticed clergy on patrols down here. Can you kind of talk about the role they're playing down here tonight, and I imagine at the area hospitals as well?
Yeah. So clergy on patrol respond to comfort victims, try to comfort the neighbors who may be experiencing trauma as a result of this traumatic incident. And they also provide comfort to our officers as well.
If we get any other updates about this scene, do you expect them to come from the scene, or do you expect them to come via email with a press conference later today?
We will provide an update probably via email through a statement. At that time, we will let you know whether a press conference will be scheduled.
Now, this is an emotional time for families. Any support that the families will be getting, like therapists or counselors, etc.?
Yeah. So the police department does have a family support group, and I think there was news announced earlier this week that that group may be moving to Drides, but we do work with the family, both the city and our county partners, to make sure the family has the support that they need.
Any information on the remaining victims at the hospitals, males, females, age ranges, anything like that?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Any information on the remaining victims, the age ranges, male, female, something, anything like that?
Not that I can provide at this time.
How do you stop the gathering?
We stopped the gatherings with community support. As I mentioned before, we hadn't received any phone calls of annoyances or a loud house party or even a large crowd. When our officers got here, we saw 100 people, so you would think that someone may have seen something prior to the shooting occurring. So we ask the community, when you see something, please pick up the phone, call 911, so that way we can come and address it, please. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you for
Have a good night.
Thank you.